Hollywood sells us one truth above all others: love is ageless. But some couples made that truth genuinely hard to swallow. 10-year gaps raised eyebrows. 20-year gaps made tabloids rich. 40-year differences, those stopped the world cold. The jokes came fast, the backlash came harder, and the headlines never stopped coming. Welcome to Classic Hollywood Legends. Subscribe now, because behind every controversial couple lies a story the cameras never fully showed you. When David Foster and Katharine McPhee first crossed paths in 2006, no one was writing a love story. Katharine was a poised young finalist on American Idol, and David was already a seasoned music producer and songwriter with Grammy wins and decades of industry credibility behind him. He served as a mentor during the competition, and their connection at the time appeared entirely professional. Years passed. Katharine built a steady career in both music and television, perhaps best known to audiences for her role in the CBS drama Scorpion. David, meanwhile, had lived a full and very public life of his own, including multiple marriages and a reputation as one of the most accomplished producers in popular music. When the two became a romantic couple and later announced their engagement in 2018, public reaction was swift and predictable. The age difference, approximately 34 years, dominated every conversation. Some people were skeptical, others were unkind. Hollywood rarely misses an opportunity to package curiosity as concern. They married in London in June 2019. In February 2021, they welcomed a son, Rennie. Since then, the couple has performed together publicly, weaving their personal and professional lives into something that clearly works for them. Their marriage has outlasted the skepticism of many early critics. Whatever strangers may think, David Foster and Katharine McPhee chose to build their life around music, family, and a quiet refusal to keep explaining themselves. Steven Tyler and Amy Preston were never going to escape public scrutiny. He is the unmistakable frontman of Aerosmith, one of rock's most enduring bands, a man already well into his 60s when their relationship surfaced. She had worked closely with him as a personal assistant, younger by roughly 39 years, and by every outward measure at a completely different chapter of life. That contrast alone was enough to fuel considerable commentary. Amy began working for Tyler around 2012. Their relationship became visible to the public in 2016 when the two appeared together at Elton John's annual AIDS Foundation Oscar viewing party. From that moment, the age gap consumed the conversation. Reactions ranged from curiosity to discomfort, and as is so often the case with high-profile couples, public opinion arrived loudly and without invitation. What has kept people talking, perhaps, is how little Tyler and Preston have chosen to explain. They have attended events together, shared warm moments on social media, and remained connected through years of speculation and occasional breakup rumors that those close to the couple have consistently dismissed. Their story resists easy summary. The age difference is significant, and reasonable people may have honest reservations, but the more straightforward fact is that two adults have continued year after year to present themselves as committed to one another. In a culture eager to render verdicts on unconventional relationships, Steven Tyler and Amy Preston remain a couple that the public cannot quite leave alone. Megan Fox and Brian Austin Green first met in 2004 on the set of the family sitcom Hope and Faith. She was 18 and just beginning to find her footing in Hollywood. He was around 30 already, familiar to an entire generation of television viewers from his years on Beverly Hills 90210. The age difference, roughly 12 to 13 years, was noticeable from the start, particularly given how young Megan was when the relationship began. On the surface, they seemed like an unlikely pairing. Megan was rapidly becoming one of the most talked-about young actresses of her generation, her profile rising sharply with films like Transformers. Brian, by contrast, had already weathered the pressures of early fame and appeared to be in a more settled place. And yet the relationship held. They got engaged in 2006, separated for a period, then married quietly in Hawaii in 2010. Together they built a family welcoming 3 sons, Noah, Bodhi, and Journey. But the marriage moved through visible turbulence. Meghan filed for divorce. In 2015, they reconciled, had their 3rd child, and ultimately separated for good. Their divorce was finalized in 2022. What their story illustrates goes beyond an age gap. It is the account of 2 people who came together at very different stages of life, committed seriously enough to try more than once, raised children together, and eventually had to accept that shared history and genuine love were not on their own sufficient to hold a marriage together. Dennis Quaid and Laura Savoy did not ease quietly into public life as a couple. When they appeared together in 2019, the reaction was immediate. He was in his mid-60s, a recognizable Hollywood veteran with decades of film credits behind him. The Parent Trap, The Rookie, The Day After Tomorrow among them. She was in her 20s, academically accomplished, and building a professional life entirely on her own terms. An age gap of roughly 39 years gave the internet exactly the material it was looking for. What sets their origin story apart slightly is where they met. It was not a film set or a celebrity party, but a business event, a setting that reflects something about who Laura is. She had pursued serious academic work in accounting, earned advanced degrees, and was not someone defined by proximity to fame. Their original wedding plans were reshaped by the pandemic, and they ultimately married in a small, understated ceremony in Santa Barbara in June 2020. Since then, Quaid has spoken openly and warmly about the relationship, saying the age difference is not a source of tension in their daily life and that he considers himself genuinely happy. Their story continues to make some people uneasy, which is precisely why it invites discussion. But Dennis Quaid and Laura Savoy have built a marriage grounded in shared faith, mutual companionship, and a mutual decision to remain largely unbothered by outside commentary, and by most accounts that approach appears to be working. When Nikki Reed and Ian Somerhalder went public as a couple in 2014, the internet had opinions ready before the ink was dry. She was widely recognized as Rosalie from the Twilight franchise. He was Damon Salvatore from The Vampire Diaries. For fans of both series, the pairing had an almost scripted quality. But the real story was more layered because Ian had previously been in a well-known relationship with his Vampire Diaries co-star Nina Dobrev, and the public had not quite let that go. The age gap between Nikki and Ian runs about 10 years, modest by the standards of Hollywood age gap conversations. What fueled the commentary was less the numbers and more the circumstances. Fans constructed a rivalry between Nikki and Nina, amplified rumors, and debated a situation they were never actually part of. Whether any of it reflected reality mattered far less than how quickly it spread. Nikki and Ian responded by moving forward. They became engaged in January 2015 and married that April in a private ceremony in California. In 2017, they welcomed a daughter, Bodhi Soleil, and a son followed in 2023. Together, they have invested energy into environmental advocacy, sharing a commitment that extends well beyond their public profiles. What their story ultimately demonstrates is staying power. The online noise was loud in the beginning, but Nikki Reed and Ian Somerhalder built something quieter and more durable. A family, a shared set of values, and a life that no longer requires outside approval to feel complete. The professional connection came first. In 2019, Zach Braff directed Florence Pugh in the short film In the Time It Takes to Get There, and for a moment it read as straightforward creative collaboration. Zach was familiar to American audiences from years on Scrubs and his work behind the camera. Florence was ascending rapidly, earning serious critical attention for roles that demonstrated range well beyond her years. Then word spread that they were a couple, and the tone of public conversation shifted almost immediately. The numbers fed the reaction. Zach was in his mid-40s, Florence in her early 20s, a gap of roughly 21 years. Online criticism came quickly and landed heavily directed largely at Zach. Florence, to her credit, did not absorb it silently. When a birthday post she shared for him drew a wave of hostile comments. In 2020, she responded directly in a video, telling her audience plainly that she was an adult, fully capable of deciding whom she loved, and that strangers were not owed a vote in the matter. Their relationship remained relatively private despite the surrounding noise. They were seen together, occasionally collaborated professionally, and declined to make their personal life a performance. By 2022, Florence confirmed they had separated and noted that they had deliberately waited before saying anything, publicly unwilling to hand a painful moment over to mass commentary. That restraint may be the most telling detail. Zach Braff and Florence Pugh lived through considerable outside pressure, made their own choices throughout, and closed the chapter quietly entirely on their own terms. Few Hollywood pairings became internet shorthand quite as fast as Leonardo DiCaprio and Camilla Morrone. When they were first linked in late 2017, he was an Oscar-winning actor well into his 40s. She was a model and emerging actress in her early 20s, still establishing her own professional identity. The age gap, approximately 23 years, became the headline that would not go away. For Leonardo, the scrutiny was familiar. His romantic history had been publicly documented and dissected for years, with observers noting a consistent pattern involving significantly younger women. But with Camilla, the commentary hardened into something more pointed. An online joke took hold, suggesting that his girlfriends never seemed to age past 25, and Camilla found herself reduced to a plot point in a narrative she had no hand in writing. That was genuinely unfair. She was a working actress with her own ambitions, not a supporting character in someone else's story. She pushed back in 2019, noting that age gap relationships have existed throughout history, and arguing that two adults should be free to make their own choices. She also expressed clear frustration that the relationship was consistently eclipsing her individual work and identity. They appeared together at the 2020 Oscars and kept most of their relationship away from public view. By mid-2022, reports confirmed they had separated shortly after Camilla turned 25, which predictably reignited every joke. Their story is uncomfortable not because anything dramatic happened, but because the public had confidently written the ending long before it arrived. Jay-Z and Beyoncé represent something rare in modern entertainment, a relationship that became as culturally significant as either career individually. The age gap between them is roughly 12 years, but that detail has always been secondary to the larger story. They first encountered each other when Beyoncé was a teenage member of Destiny's Child, and Jay-Z was already an established and influential figure in hip-hop. For years, they kept things private. The music eventually said otherwise. '03 Bonnie and Clyde signaled something to attentive listeners, and Crazy in Love in 2003 made their connection impossible to overlook. They married quietly in 2008 and later became parents to Blue Ivy, then twins Rumi and Sir. From the outside, the picture looked almost impossibly complete: awards, business ventures, record-breaking tours, and a cultural presence few couples have ever matched. Then came Lemonade in 2016. The album was widely understood as Beyoncé's unflinching response to infidelity grief and the slow work of healing. The following year, Jay-Z publicly acknowledged he had been unfaithful. Suddenly, the polished image gave way to something far more human: damage, accountability, and the decision to rebuild rather than walk away. That willingness to be honest, even at enormous personal cost, is what separates their story from standard celebrity narrative. Jay-Z and Beyoncé did not simply maintain a brand. They weathered genuine pain, put it into their art, and continued forward as partners, proof that even extraordinary success cannot substitute for the hard private work of keeping a marriage intact. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. See you in the next one.